Guwahati Art Project.
All right. Okay, the day is finally here. Okay, this is something which we've been working really hard for the past few days, and we've been super excited for it. So, everyone who's joined us, all of you who have registered and are here with us right now. So, welcome to Gap Talks 2020. This is a very unique experience for us also because it's the very first online digital event, and it's probably one of the very first online digital design events to be happening out of the Northeast right now. We are coming to you live from the city of Guwahati, and for those of you who are joining us for the first time today, we are Guwahati Art Project. We started in 2018. We are a small collective of designers, artists, storytellers, and we basically started this initiative with the sole motive of building a creative community in this region, building a creative scene, because all four of us also, we met each other through chance. We met each other through an event, and which again gives testimony that we need more events happening in the city. We need to know that as creative people we have a community, and that was the sole idea behind which we felt there needs to be some kind of a community to nurture the creative scene in this region. And as creative people, it can get sometimes very lonely growing up alone and feeling like no one understands us. And for me, that personally changed when I found my fellow co-partners with whom we started the Guwahati Art Project. So that was the main ambition that we had behind, the main vision behind Guwahati Art Project. Now we are at the third edition of the Gap Talks. Gap Talks is an event which we had begun. This is the image from the very first Gap Talks, which happened in 2018 February. And the whole idea behind Gap Talks was to have a space, a stage to have conversations around art, design, working in the creative industry, and also to bring people from the regional creative scene and also from the national design scene together on the same platform. We wanted to bridge that gap that exists currently between the regional scene, by which I mean like Northeast. Northeast is always considered something different, like it's like this corner of India, and it's very rare that we get to experience speakers from, or accomplished designers from the rest of India come and speak to the young fellow designers from this side. So we wanted to fill that vacuum over there. And another experience that we had was, while all of us were living in different cities, we would often come across, there would be events like this happening every weekend, every month. There would be amazing speakers coming from Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore. And we wanted to create the same culture over here. So this was the first Gap Talks event that we had. Then this is our very own Pranta Tamoli presenting for the very first Gap Talks. Then this is the Gap Talks which we had last year in 2019. We had some amazing designers from the regional scene. We have Rinki, who has the amazing brand Miss Bonua. We had Arpit Agarwal. We had Daksha Salam, and we had our very own Dapun Rai Devan sharing their work, their stories. And on the second day, this was our 2-day event. It was Gap Talks Part 2. We had a 2-day event. And on the second day, we had someone very, very special, Vaibhav Kumresh. He was there with us sharing his work journey. And it was a very special moment for us because we were all huge fans of Vaibhav Studios. We had grown up looking at Simpu and all the amazing animated shots that he had done for Channel V. So it was like a dream come true to see someone like him and learn from him. So this year we have planned for you 3 days, 3 days of really exciting and amazing sessions. We have amazing panelists coming from across different fields, different disciplines of design, and we try to make sure that there is something for everyone. I'll just take you through, like, we have 3 days, we have 15 speakers and one goal, and that's the theme of our session, design the future. We will get to it a little later, but before that, I would like to introduce the whole team behind Bhati Art Project. So I am Abhishek. I am an illustrator and designer. I am based out of Guwahati right now. We have been planning this session for past quite a few days for us, and we were working tirelessly to give you like one of the best experience that you could have. And we know this is also a very different experience also. Like, we are all at our homes. You guys are at our homes. So hope you guys had an exciting experience. And I'm really happy that this is finally coming to life. Over to you, Shantanu.
Hey guys, so I'm Shantanu Hazarika. I'm an illustrator and artist based out of Bombay and Delhi. So we are here to give you an experience, like we actually give you sort of an introduction to what Gap has been doing for the past few years, which Abhishek has filled you in. And we're really excited to be part of this. And hopefully we have a really good session in the coming 3 days. So stay tuned.
So, hey, hi guys, I'm Dapun. I'm from the animation field, and I've been an animator in Weber Studios, the speaker we had last year. Under Weber Kumresh. So I've been working under him for the past 9 years, and it's been a wonderful experience. I'm usually based out of Bombay, but I'm right now here in Guwahati. So it was wonderful just coming along and just ideating this whole event, and bringing this out in the open. So thank you so much for joining in. I'm very excited to be here, and we'll see how the ball rolls these 3 days. Amalindu, do you wanna unmute yourself?
Hi, Dapun. Thanks for introducing everyone. And Abhishek. Film designer. I've been working in the field of animation, film, illustration, comics. So I've been also part of Gap since its inception. So we had some really nice events since last 2 years, and this year we have been really looking forward for something really interesting, which is digital dialogues. So we have some really exciting designers and artists and people around the country, and I'm really curious and looking forward for this event. Over to you, Prantha.
Hey guys, this is Prantor. I'm an artist, an architect, and I'm currently studying biointegrated design at UCL London. And personally, Gap, since its very foundation in 2018, has been really a transformative journey for me personally, doing these events. And I'm really, really looking forward to it for the next 3 days. We have quite a few different speakers, and I think from very, very different categories. And I'm really looking forward to it. But I think before we get into the different kinds of speakers and categories that we have, we would like to take a small moment to perhaps talk about why we want to discuss designing about the future. And as Abhishek mentioned, that the very foundation of Gap was spontaneous, and it was completely out of our own collective passion for art and design, a necessity to adapt to changing times, and the desire to communicate and help our fellow creative family in the Guwahati, Assam, and the Northeast region. And this spontaneous authenticity is something that we have been trying to keep alive for the last couple of years. And this year's theme too, designing the future, is something that has emerged on its own in our own personal discussions amongst ourselves. And so we thought it'll be a good moment to take, it'll be good to take a moment to understand why we must talk about designing the future. So ever since we have been growing up, and I think especially the millennials and the generation Z, we have always known that the 21st century is a new world. We are living in a new era. and never before in human history has transportation been so easy, communication so far reaching, and information so easily available. But as things started to progress and move into the second decade of this century, things started to become a little bit more serious, and everything seemed to be changing. The climate is changing, society is changing, politics is changing, economy is changing. And I think, and we think that this change has been made even more apparent and acute in the last few months with the reality of the pandemic. It is one of the most tragic, critical events in the entire of human history that has happened, and this marks pretty much marks a flag in our entire generation. And for a couple of days, I think the entire world came to a standstill in the very beginning when the pandemic was declared. So many people have lost their lives, and this crisis is still going on. And all the rest of us have been forced to adapt and struggle, and we have been forced to and put in a situation where we cannot uh, ignore it anymore. And I think at some points when we have been in all our in the during the lockdown in the last couple of months, we have all been facing a sort of trying our own ways to deal with it. And at some moments we have all been hopeless, at some moments we have always all felt hopeful. And uh, and it's a completely unimaginable truth. It is something that is completely out of a movie, but it is, however, a truth. And the very fact that it is a truth makes the fact that we are living in a different world today. But there is another unimaginable truth, and which is also very much a part of our reality that we often forget, and that is our very presence at this moment. The very fact that we are here talking, attending this webinar from different parts of the world is a story of progress itself. This means that over millions of years, our ancestors, our forefathers, our great great forefathers have struggled through many kinds of different adversities, the Black Plague, the Crusades, the World Wars, and everything. And we have still come so far until 2020. And it is, if you look at entire of human history, it has always been a story of progress, not just against natural calamities, but also against for values that have changed from dictatorships to democracy, from to women's rights to liberty of sexual orientations. It has always been a progress for humanity. And so I think these momentarily lapses of hopelessness that we feel, we believe that these come not from an ability, not from an inability to act or inability to adapt, but it comes from an uncertainty of our vision, of the fact that we do not clearly see where we are moving. And because we do not have this vision, we cannot believe in it. And because we do not believe in it, we cannot take action in it. And therefore, this event, whatever we wanted to curate this year, has been around bringing this hope back, the vision, the belief, and the action. And therefore, we wanted to have a few dialogues and discussions about the role we play as creative professionals in these changing times. And let's be very honest about the fact that this is not going to be some kind of life-changing 3 days. This is a discussion that cannot be done in such a small period of time and by such a small period of people. But what we are attempting here as a Guwahati Art Project community is, I think, to start this discussion about what we can do and how we can do. And therefore, we want to talk about and bring in people who are really putting in some effort and doing some pioneering work. And as personally, I think we have a few goals that we would like to adhere to, and we believe it would be great if we could remember them for these next 3 days when we are looking at these speakers. And then number one is learn. One of my favorite authors is Yuval Noah Harari, who's written the Sapiens, the Homo Deus book. And one of the things he says is the future is so uncertain and it's changing so fast, and that the most important skill that you can learn right now is to keep learning. Is how you keep learning every time is the skill that is going to change, or is going to be the most important one for our upcoming times. The second is think. The fact that we have come so far in history or in the future till 2020 is by the ability of our brains, of our minds, is our ability to think. And this, our mind is the key to adaptation and progress, and therefore think. And next is imagine. And that's because probably everything that has come to become a reality in our lives was first imagined by somebody. Somebody imagined an aeroplane and it was made a few years later. Somebody imagined a submarine and it was made a few years later. Everything that we have today was first conceptualized and imagined by somebody, and therefore imagine. And finally, and I think this is needless to say because we are all people from the creative backgrounds, and that is to create, embrace the freedom that we have in ourselves and create whatever our heart desires. And I think one of the things that we wanted to do in by curating in this event is, when we are talking about the future, we wanted to talk about it from different perspectives of it, and therefore we have different categories of speakers, and we would like to shortly introduce these categories and the speakers that we have. And I think, Abhishek, would you like to take forward and introduce our first category of speakers?
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Pranta, for that really insightful and informative presentation. And I think that really helps set the stage and the tone for what's going to come in the next 3 days. So like Pranta said, when we were conceptualizing and curating this list, this theme, the speakers that we're going to come, we thought of 3 to 4 larger perspectives under which we can look at how to design the future. But then we also realized, like, design as a medium is so interdisciplinary that it's very hard to box someone into one category. You'll always find a person is doing one role as well, and he's also fulfilling another role as well at the same time. Regardless, the 3 to 4 different categories that we uh, conceived of while curating the list. The first one out of that was design for social impact. We felt designing for social impact is something which cannot be separated from the role of a designer. As we go into the future, it becomes more and more imperative that a designer's work is going to be more and more socially relevant, and and we as designers need to be mindful about the environmental impact that our work has, the impact that it has on communities and lifestyles, the impact that it's going to have on economies. And over the years, like, there have been a lot of pioneering designers who have led the the flow in working, using their design practice, using their design methodologies in efforts to, like, work with communities, be it working with marginalized people, working in marginalized economies, in fact. So under this category, we are very excited to have Sonam Gyaltsen from Sikkim, who is the co-founder of EcoStream Design Studios, which is based in Sikkim again. They have been doing a tremendous job working with the local communities of Sikkim and what he calls the creative mountain economy. So we are very excited to learn about his process, his journey into his work. Then we also have Roshni Desai, someone we are very excited to talk about. She's a designer and co-founder, and she's a founder of Local Labs, which is a design studio and a design research lab. And they've been doing some amazing work when it comes to decolonizing Indian design and looking at Indian graphic design from a new light. So stay tuned. She's coming online tomorrow. We are very excited to also have with us Aravani Art Project. They are doing an amazing job working with the transgender community and bringing up conversations again about the marginalized community that the transgenders are. So we are super excited about that as well. And the next category that we have is working, like, since we mentioned that we are in a very uncertain time right now, and a lot of things are changing, societies are changing, economies are changing, and we currently are in a space where it's a very difficult economy. Like, there's a lot of changes happening. It's not a very it's not the most comfortable time to be in, but it's very important for us as designers to know how to keep ourselves safe, or like, keep ourselves protected from such times, and how to make sound economical decisions so that we are able to navigate through these times. So Shantanu Hazarika will take us through what we have in that category. So over to you, Shantanu.
Hey, hi guys. So, like Abhishek said, we like design has been an integral part of almost everything around us. So, speaking of this side of design, I want to talk about how we consume design, how design and consumerism is something which is uh, at the peak right now, so as to speak. So we are all consumers in an ever-growing society. Consumer products and capitalism is something, it's an integral part of our modern civilization. So keeping that in mind, we have curated a series of discussion based on this expanding industry and what the future holds for this industry, or for the applied arts, and how consumer products are being implemented. And so, keeping this in mind, we have amazing artists, designers like Akib Wani and Sajid, who have been working in this field for a fair amount of time, and they have worked with, they have like a long list of clientele consisting of many of the biggest consumer brands that is right now. So, ranging from apparel to the whole F&B industry. So, we'll be covering extensively everything that is in industry oriented, from like starting from pitching projects to different clients, to different companies, to execution, to music festivals, to things through which we as consumers consume design and art. So I hopefully you guys stick around, and we will talk in depth about this in the coming few days. And next, it's about storytelling. After you, Dapun.
Hey, thanks, Antanu. It has been rightly said that this pandemic has affected us all in different ways, and it has been something very new for all of us. But I would just like to also add that it also depends on how we look at it. What we what we gain out of it. So I am very personally, being from the field of animation, I'm very personally proud to see some of the amazing work that have come out from the animators in the country during the pandemic. And just quickly, I'll just talk about one such animator who will be here tomorrow from 5 to 6. He is Devjyoti Saha. He is an NIT graduate who is best known for his uh, Corona animated series that have gone viral. And he also makes his amazing thought-provoking comics on current affairs, and has recently made an amazing music video for the Prabdeep called Chitta. So we're very, very excited to have him on board. And let's see. Amal, do you want to take over?
Thanks, Dapun. You almost said what I wanted to say. So yeah, so it's the same thing, like, how animation, communication, design has played a role during this pandemic, and how it's quite important, acting as a very important tool for like us designers to, communicate ideas and, tell stories. So up next we have Pawan Buragohai. He is also an ID alumni. He's working in the industry since 1995. So he's a veteran in the animation industry. He worked in like a lot of different projects. He's a multifaceted designer and animator. So we are really looking forward for his process. He also worked in Arjuna, the animated feature film coming out of India, which is one of those films which went to NSC. And so we really look forward to this, So over to Pranta.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amal, Abhishek, Shannu, for the categories that you mentioned. And I think the next category that we have is something that we cannot ignore when we are talking about the future, and that is the role of technology and how it is influencing design and the very way we live and changing everything around us. So the next category of speakers is are designers who are designing with advanced technologies and talking about and conceptualizing advanced technologies. And in this category, we have first up the amazing Ayaz Basrai from the Basrai studio. And he is an amazing person with great foresight who talks about speculative scenarios and how we can design around them, and what our specifically in Indian context, what these futuristic concepts or futuristic spaces or our cities and our places that we live in could look like in the coming times. The next we have Shneel Malik, and she's a biointegrated design researcher at the University of College London. And she is designing with biology and advanced fabrication. And this is something that is completely new and emerging in the field of design right now, made possible only through technology and the advances in biology. And she's designing for the Indian context in these cases. And she's also a TED Talk speaker. And it will be very interesting to see what she has to say. And after that, we have our very own Moon Narun from Brain Pan Studio. And he has been working and developing his visions on conceptualizing future worlds and future spaces and how the future might look like. And I think it'll be very interesting to see what his process is and how he imagines these scenarios and these visions of the future. So I think that is it. And Abhishek, I think you would like to now take over and give us some details about the format of the event for the next 3 days, how it is set up, and what we are up for.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Shantanu, Amalendo, Dapun, and Prantar for introducing the different speakers, the different categories. All right, so I think we are sort of closing into the main event almost. So before that, again, I have to mention that this is a, wait, we're getting some disturbances. Can all the panelists put themselves on mute? We request all the panelists to put themselves on mute. Anyways, I'll just carry on. So, okay, here's the schedule that we have so far. We have day one. We have from 2 o'clock to 3 p.m., which is the opening, which is what we are happening right now. From 3:30 onwards to 4:30, we have Nori Norbhu, and that's the next session. We are super excited about that. She'll be talking about how she became a self-taught illustrator, a digital artist, and she hails from the town of Darjeeling. So stay tuned, that'll be super exciting. From 5 to 6 p.m., we have Pritiza Borwa. She is also a self-taught photographer, and she hails from Assam, and she will tell you her journey about how she became, how she found her way into digital photography. From 6:30 to 7:30 p.m., we have Studio Echo Stream, which will be attended by Sonam Gyaltsen and another one of his colleagues, Sushant from Studio Echo Stream. They'll be talking about creative mountain economy. And from 7:30 to 8:30, we have Ayaz Basrai, the super amazing speculative architect. I don't know what to call it. Like he's trained as an industrial designer, and he co-founded the studio Bus Ride. And like Pranta said, we have been having this amazing futuristic ideas of what cities will be like in the future. So that is a sort of the schedule for day one, which is today. With regard to the session, we will be having an hour-long session with each one of them. There will be half-an-hour sessions where this will be time for the panelists to share their work, and they will have the opportunity to engage in a discussion. So overall, it'll be very conversational. It'll be very much like you're seeing us in real life. We're just having a conversation like that. And after that, there'll be half an hour for questions. So if you would like to ask questions, I would suggest you just check on top. There should be a question Q&A button right next to mute. So if you want to have any questions, you tap there, and all your questions will come. Other than that, there's a chat option where you guys can talk to each other. But yeah, make sure your questions come there, because otherwise it can just get lost over there. So yeah, we can actually do a test of that. If you have any questions, why don't you just use that question tab and see how that works. And yeah, that's what I think we have for now. You can see in between each session we have like a short break, and we know that you guys are also in the comfort of your own homes and everything. So so we just urge you to have a really good time. Sit comfortably in your nice cozy spot near your Wi-Fi hotspot and enjoy the session. And before we part, we would like to thank our sponsors. We're very, very lucky. We're very, very happy to have Wacom India as a title sponsor. They are one of the, if you don't know about them already, like I'm guessing all of you already know, but if you're a young upcoming digital artist or anyone in the creative profession, chances are you must have used the Wacom product at some point of time. So Wacom is the industry leader in making quality digital drawing tablets and a lot of other products that is almost essential for digital artists. So check them out, go to the Instagram page, and the Wacom is being super nice that all the registered attendees who are here, so they will be getting a special discount coupon from Wacom. So you'll be hearing from them after the event is over. So make sure you've come on here with your email IDs and everything. You've used the correct email ID so that they can reach you. And we have our media sponsors, Pen and Chai. They are a very amazing group of people who are doing some amazing work for young designers. Go and follow them on Instagram. They have a lot of interesting content just curated for emerging designers and budding artists, and really helpful. I personally like them a lot. So they will be covering this event, taking highlights and snippets and everything. So we'll be sharing up there on their platform. So if you want to take notes, you can take notes. But if you forget to take notes, just go onto their Instagram and you can find it there. And yeah, and there are a lot of other interesting speakers. So I just urge you to go to our Instagram pages. If you have any questions, DM us. And if you guys have any issues, DM us. And whatever, like you have anything related to some links are not working or something like that, just send us a message. Someone will attend to you at the earliest. Also, it's a very first time, it's a new platform for all of us, so there might be like a few glitches here and there, so bear with us. We'll try to give you a seamless experience. And did I miss anything, guys? Please fill in if I have. Other than that, yes, of course I missed something. For those of you who have been following us on Instagram, you guys know that all the profits from this event are going towards a very special cause, for which I think, Dapun, would you like to fill them in on what's the special cause that we are talking about?
Yeah, sure. Hi guys. So like Abhishek said, we have a charity partner with us, and we are extremely happy to have partnered with them. So they are, I call them the super siblings pair. So there is Dinaz and Nawab, that's a sibling pair, and there is Nazmi and Nadeem, that's another sibling pair, and they have been working very hard in raising a crowdfunding, in maintaining a crowdfunding campaign that raises funds for this NGO called the Rapid Response India, so which is the first disaster management NGO in India. So they've been very, they've been very hands-on, and they've been like going to the ground level and providing rehabilitation and food and everything, taking care of everything. So I found them to be very genuine in their causes. So we decided to partner with them. And if you want to know more, we also did a live session with them a few days ago, and then you can go and check it out, and then find out more about their work, what they do. So all of the, like Abhishek mentioned, all of these profits collected from here, all of the profits will go straight to the crowdfunding campaign. And additionally, if you would like to donate to the campaign, So you can definitely go check them out. They are on our Instagram link. I have tagged them on the Instagram link. You can check their link on their bios. So yeah. Let's get the ball rolling.
All right. Okay, let's get the ball rolling. So yeah, looks like yeah.
Right,
You have a
either
question?
This is from Rituparna. Is the link going to be the same one you shared in the mail throughout?
All
Or
right.
also
So where's
is
this question? I
not
can see it.
happening?
Is it in the chat?
And then
Yeah,
it's in the Q&A tab
tap in the Q&A thing.
Oh,
near the
okay.
chat button.
Okay. I don't know. I can see it. But yeah, okay. But glad it's working for some of you. So that's good. So yes, it's going to be the same link for all the 3 days. So you can join in anytime. You can join us from anywhere in the world as long as you have the link. So just make sure, yeah, like whenever the sessions are going on, like you have the timings in mind. A little bit here and there, but looks like, yeah, we are done way ahead of time. It didn't take an hour like we thought it would. So we have an extra amount of time. So if you guys have any other questions, yeah, feel free to have a conversation with us. We are around for a bit. So we are super.
Should we just give them like 5-10 minutes so that we can get more questions about the sessions ahead? So and then we can
Yeah.
Even if not about the session, we can just have a like casual chat. We have some time, right?
Okay. Prantar wants to. Guys, anyone who has questions for Prantar, because he's been away for so long, he's in London.
Yeah.
You guys wanna ask what's
not directed towards me. Yeah, okay.
anything else, guys? If you guys have any other questions, please feel free to hit us up. The question and Q&A tab is there.
What did you guys?
If you guys want to just chat with us.
Anybody wants to share opinions on what we shared about the pandemic, or the creative profession, the struggles that we have been going through, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's one who asked like, what did you guys have for breakfast?
Who's that?
Wait, one sec. That
What did you guys have for breakfast?
I had Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator for breakfast. That's what I've been having for the past 3 days.
I haven't had any breakfast.
Stay hungry. And yeah, I had Domino's, surprisingly.
What the?
We have one more in the chat. Shantanu, can you tell us about your tattoos in the meantime?
Oh wow.
So there's Salvador Dali here. I love Dali's work. He's been one of my biggest inspirations. Then there is a pagan goddess of hunt here. She also symbolizes planet Venus. Then again here I have something more abstract, but let's not get into that. But yeah, and I have a Deadpool right on my calves. But yeah, Deadpool is Deadpool.
Mm-hmm.
We have more questions.
We have more coming in. Wow, this is interesting. So yes, how has the lockdown been treating you guys from Nitumbarna?
Who wants to go?
So should we go with individual answers? Like how
I think you should go with
individual
answers.
Yeah.
This is interesting. I think the relevant thing.
So yeah, like this is what I've like. Lockdown has been a bit tough because I had a lot of projects lined up in pipes, which was happening throughout the whole year. So I had planned out 6 months in advance for each thing that is going to happen. But because of lockdown, there's a complete reshuffling of the entire thing. So I had to improvise a lot of things. I had to take up projects which I would actually won't take up, but I had no other option. So I had to take up projects. I had to take up most of online projects, like remotely done projects, at a like sometimes at a compromise rate also, because there was not many options left. You gotta do what you gotta do. But other than that, it has been a very like a introspective journey, because I was getting more time with myself. Since I was locked up in a room, and I was just left to my devices, so as to say, like literally with my devices. So I just could explore new things, and I could rethink about the future ahead. So right now I'm planning to expand in a different field of art itself, in different consumer products, because before I was doing it for just as an how to say it, more of an artistic thing, like an artistic expression. But right now I'm heading towards more of a consumer based expression. So during this pandemic, I had a whole reshuffling of my concept and my things that I've been going through. Other than that, I think this pandemic is kind of a dicey situation for all of us, especially all the freelancers. But I guess we'll survive. As long as we're creative, we'll survive.
Yeah. So I think thank you so much, Anu. That is quite insightful, and I think this is a very relevant question. And I think everybody will have different things to share. For me personally, I had just moved in, and it was a big decision for me to do masters again. And I had just moved to London in September, and this was a big thing for me. And then suddenly the lockdown was all of a sudden, and over here it was quite scary. I don't know about in India, but here it felt like the world was ending. Everything in the stores, we were suddenly announced one day on 12th of March. I still remember that from tomorrow onwards the university is closed indefinitely, because they had no idea when it would open again. And everything closed, and everybody started to pack up their studio things like in big card boxes, and everybody started taking things out. Everything was left here scattered, and it was quite scary as hell. And then after that, we were asked, like, I'm staying in an accommodation here, and in the next 1 week we get messages from the universities saying that everybody, all the international students, whoever are here, are advised to go back to their homes, because we don't know what the situation is going to be. And there almost more than 50% people left. Everything became empty. And then we had to go to the stores, and in the supermarkets literally everything was empty. One of the first things that was empty was toilet papers, which I as Indian could never understand why. before food before food, I'm here as an Okomia. I'm trying to look for rice. Okay, I'm trying to look for the section where there is rice. and and I see the other section which is completely empty. Okay, and it was crazy. And then for the first couple of weeks, in fact, it was very hard to uh, understand what was happening. And over here, I think also the death rate was quite intense. So in April and March, everything was shut down, and all I could hear was ambulances outside. And it was just like in the news, it was like 700, 800,000 people dying every day for a couple of weeks in March and April. And that was scary. It was straight out of a horror movie. But I think, like Shantanu said, this lockdown has been one of the biggest pause for me. Like, just take a break. Like, everybody is on a break. You take some time to think, and I think then it's been an up and down journey of introspection. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So if I may, also share my experience. So I come from the city of Mumbai, that is was the worst affected city, or I don't know, probably still is. So I have actually lived with the fear there. Well, it has been a mixed bag for me. I remember when the lockdown was announced, and the outbreak was announced and everything. So I don't know, personally, it didn't really make much of a difference to my lifestyle, because as an artist, I was kept to my screen. I was glued to my screen. I would always be inside my house. So it didn't really make much of a difference that way. But yes, other than that, the things changed when I realized that I couldn't even go out to the shop anymore. I couldn't, I had to be careful of, I had to be wary of people, coming in contact with people. So all that was very scary for me. But again, just to look at the positive side, I think it has been sort of like a boon for me, because I learned to cook. The first thing I learned was cooking. So I learned to cook every day. I learned to get up. I learned to wash my clothes and all that, which I would, because of the maid stopped coming and all that. So I learned to divide my time, manage my time well. Of course, there was one thing that was bothering me in the beginning, and it still kind of bothers me, is that the difference between office space and home space was gone. So earlier, I remember I used to go home, I used to go to work, and that would be a different space, and that would have a different aura on its own. And when I would come back home, it would have a different aura. So I could cut off, easily. I could like prepare myself mentally like that. But now it's the same space, whether it's day or whether it's night. So yeah, I think I learned how to quickly. One of the tricks that I learned how to make this difference clear was that I used to wear a shirt whenever I would start working at the daytime. So I would feel like I'm at work. So that's how it. I had to like quickly make up these little, what do you call this? Little methods of just training my brain and just getting used to the whole process. Yeah. So and it was like living in a war zone. I remember when I came all the way to Guwahati, I literally, it was like an escape. I was in a space suit, I was in a hazmat suit. So it was very special. It was very, I wouldn't say special, but it was, I don't know, it was very scary for me in the beginning, but it eased. I think it eased the process because I was wearing that suit and the people were very helpful. And, yeah. So yeah, I guess that's how it affected me. And now I'm here in Guwahati. I'm here with my family. So it's been easy since then.
Yeah, I think Dapun, I can relate to your story because I was myself was in Bombay and the hustle I know and then, but like as Santanu said, it's been quite introspective because like coming back home and after a long time being home and you get so much time to yourself and and like I have decided now like like this is how most of the time we have to start dealing with it and start working in this way so like after coming here like the kind of projects also which started coming in is like quite intense, so you have to handle between all those things. And as you said, like we also got time to do and polish our like other skills like cooking, reading and all these other things so it had been quite an interesting introspection also so far. So yeah, Abhishek, you want to share?
I mean, yeah, I'll just like summarize this whole thing. But yeah, like I would relate to you guys. I was fortunately lucky that I was home this entire time. I was in Guwahati this entire time. So I was lucky that way, that I was lucky to be around with family. But I would say, yeah, like this, like Pranta said, that it has been a pause, definitely. The whole world came to a pause. But for some reason, like for us creators, nothing much changed really, because we have been working from home even before the pandemic. Even now it's the same. Business was never really booming for us either. So it's remained like almost similar for me. Of course I miss going out. I miss having community meetups. I would have loved to all of us to meet together and plan this event. This event was brought to you together where we didn't even meet each other physically, not even once. It was all done over the internet. So it's kind of amazing to how it all came together. Just when I was sort of feeling down on inspiration, I think Dapun came up with this idea that, hey guys, let's do something like an online digital event, which was actually suggested by Vaibhav Kumaresh. So I'm really glad to Vaibhav sir and Dapun for planting this idea in our heads and letting this happen. So guys,
Thank you.
All right. I think we'll close the session for now. We have another half an hour to go.
We have a few more questions though. You want to take them?
I think we'll be able to
but I think we
answer
should shortly
after in the session. I think like one is for
Yes,
Shantanu is talking about how can you peeps talk about how a freelance art illustrator or a designer can approach clients or even collaborative projects like how Shantanu works with Adidas a lot. I think this is something that we'll have a special session when Shantanu is hosting his session. I think
So stick around for the third day. We're going to be covering all these topics on the third day with on the panel discussion. So most of the questions will be answered throughout the sessions and throughout each day that we do the panel discussions. So yeah, and then
I think all these questions, I think it will be covered within these 3 days.
Yes.
All the other questions. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a cliffhanger. So stick around. You gotta stick around.
And I think then there's
we don't
one
give
more
everything away on the first day.
How did you guys come up with Gap? It's from Ria. Was it inspired by some personal experience Northeast faced when it comes to the creative industry? Loving the energy. I think this is bit of a long question, but
Very
I
long.
think this, yeah,
Yeah,
I mean like a long answer
yeah,
to
very long answer.
this
But
question.
we'll just say that we got inspired from each other's work. We had our friend late Ajay, who unfortunately passed away. Is not with us, but he was one of the glue that binded us together. And we came up with this whole idea how Northeast has always been lagging industry standard or has been lagging exposure in the field of design. So this was the prime motive for us to come together and bring all our forces together like Captain Planet or Power Rangers and just boom, there we go. We have Gap.
Avengers Unite.
I think it is
Yeah,
important.
Avengers Assemble. Avengers Assemble.
Yeah, and I think it is important that we remember Ajay every time we have Gap Talks,
Yes.
because
Yes.
quite honestly, this logo, the name, and this entire conceptualization and was, I think, more or less entirely his idea.
Dream.
And right before when we did our first event, he passed away, and we were left with sort of this responsibility to carry on this torch. And I think that has been one of the key driving forces for us until then. Yeah, I think.
All right. Chalo, then.
All right.
So,
I think,
guys,
yeah,
we're
let's
done.
close
Party
for
Art
now.
Project.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the first session of Gap Talks 2020. And thank you so much to all of you for joining us on the opening. We had a really fun session. Thank you all for making it super interactive. We have with us someone today very special, a very good friend. We have Nori Norbhu, who is a self-taught illustrator from Darjeeling. Hey Nori, welcome.
Hi, hello guys.
How's it going? Where are you joining us from today?
So I am currently based in Bangalore. So I've been here for the past 9 months. Yeah, I just moved from Bombay to Bangalore. So
Awesome. So we are super excited to have you with us.
yeah, I'm so excited to be able to do that.
There's like a slight disturbance happening. Like, is it? Wait, let me just check. Okay, do we have everything ready? Yeah, it's 3:30. And yeah, let's start our lovely session with a very lovely Nori Norbhu, who's joining us from Bangalore, a self-taught illustrator and designer who started off as, very interestingly, a dentist. And then she found her way into illustration and digital art, and she has worked with some really amazing people. She has worked with The Glitch in Bombay, which is, I think, a digital agency. And currently you are a designer for Flipkart. Am I all right? Did I sum it up right?
Correct.
All right. Awesome. So Nori, okay. And there's always a very interesting story attached to how people find a way into this field, into the field of digital art, illustration. And since I was, when I first saw your profile on Instagram, I fell in love with your style. I fell in love with your work. It has such a nice feel to it. I love your color palettes. I love your style. And it almost took me by surprise when I read in your bio that you were self-taught. So tell us about your journey. Like, have you always drawn? Have you always been into art as a kid? Or is this something new for you?
So I think as a kid, I was pretty creative in that sense. I had I remember this first instance when we had fine arts as an option for a sixth subject, but it was so vague, the class, because we didn't really have the right kind of teachers, or probably it was just an extra class. So I think at that point of time, I realized even though we were left on our own, sometimes they would take us to the garden and make us draw. It was just very random. It wasn't like a very structured program. But I always enjoyed art class. We didn't really have any formal training in that sense, because I think even the teacher was actually a teacher was doing something else but had to substitute, coming to our classes.
Yeah.
So it kind of started out that way where we were just like, normal pencil sketches and trying to get through. But I always remember enjoying that class the most. I mean, even when I was in school. But I think probably because I'm from Darjeeling, which is a small town in the hills. And I don't think you grow up with that kind of exposure to be able to, get into the arts. Like education is still very, very formal, very, like doctor, engineer, things like that. I mean, this was at that point of time when I was growing up. So I didn't really look at it as an option in that sense. And my definition of art was also like Monet and like Van Gogh and, things like that, where it was very, very traditional forms of art. So I never really like thought about it at that point of time. But I think probably, so this was after I had just joined college in order to, become a dentist and things like that. And I always had that pull to kind of sit with a sketchbook in any way, in any like time frame, like, pockets that I used to get to relax. So I used to kind of sketch and, try and continue that that love that I had when I was, younger. So I couldn't really do it properly till I was in my internship in college, because till then our schedule was super, super, super hectic. So it was during my internship, I kind of had a little bit of like time to myself as well, which was when I think Instagram and things like that were taking off, digital art was taking off, and I saw it as like a new avenue to kind of get into things. But I didn't really know how to begin because I had
Right.
no training in any sense. So yeah, I think I should just sit around, sketch with like my marker and like pencils at that point of time. And so then I remember once I'd seen these, like sketches online, and I thought, wow, it'll be so cool if I could get into it. So I borrowed an iPad from my mother, which never went back to her. So technically I stole it, I guess. But so I used to use my finger and kind of like, I was like, okay, let's see if something comes out of this. So which was how I slowly began, I think, in that process.
That is so interesting, and that is so relatable at the same time, because for a lot of us who are coming from, say, these tier 2 cities or like, other parts of the country which are not the metros, which are not the Delhi, Bangalore's and Mumbai's, the art class in school is such a joke. Like it is like,
I
it can
swear.
range from anywhere, like, draw the spot to like, yeah, it's a free
Yeah.
period, play games, do what you
Oh
want and
my
everything.
God, this was exactly the experience we had. Like, I think weekly, otherwise our teacher would put like fruits in one vase
Yeah.
and draw. We were like, okay, cool. Trying to get the form then.
Yeah, that's it. And he'll be very clever. It's just like every day he'll come with the same basket of fruit. He just rearrange it. It's different now.
That's quite funny.
It's true. And
Yeah.
it's also funny because when we were in class 10, art was treated as this, like you said, like the sixth subject or something. So it was assigned as a subject that if you're very bad at your studies and there are
Yeah.
chances of you that might fail, you choose art so that you at least will pass. And it's so sad. It's such like a great disservice
I
to
agree.
art and like to, and I'm so glad that like, we eventually ended up finding our way and following our passion. And
Yeah. I'm so
yeah,
happy it
and
happened.
so like you said, it's also very relatable, the fact that not knowing when to start, or how to start, because we are constantly bombarded with these amazing images of artists on Instagram. And of course you look at that and you want, I wish I was doing this with my life, I wish I was making these kind of wonderful illustrations. But thankfully for you, you had an iPad, right? And
Yeah.
you could just find your way into digital art through the iPad. So that's when, is that when you started you having your own Instagram account and you started like sharing your work? And what was the response like? Like, did you have these bouts of self-doubt? Did you ever feel like, what am I
Oh,
doing?
yeah, self-doubt has been, I mean, my friend throughout this whole process because, yeah, when you're self-trained, it kind of, I think, comes with the job as well.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
I remember, I think I started putting out like, few sketches and all, but the thing is I would never put my face anywhere. So it was just a name, and I was so scared to kind of put my face to it as well. But yeah, but I'll tell you when actually it sparked off completely for me. So I was on this, I was actually going for a dental conference to Bombay. And at that point of time, I was still a little more versed probably in like, sketching and things like that. And randomly, I think it was my sister and me who were on that flight. And then there was this gentleman sitting next to us. So as usual, like, when you're in the air, I kind of like, whenever I get free time, I kind of sit and, do whatever I was doing. And, he asked me, he's like, oh, so are you like a design student, things like that. I was like, no, I'm a dentist. So he's like, wow, that's crazy. I mean, like, I like what you're, working on currently. So later, as we were like talking to each other, I realized he's a professor from NID. At that point of time, he was working at NID. And like he told me, I think, maybe you should try and see if you can get into this, because I've taught students in the past, and I think you probably like have the capability to kind of learn and grow from there. So I said, I never thought of it that way, and coming from maybe someone who's trained, it meant something to me. So I think that kind of sparked off this whole conversation in my head. Like, oh, maybe I could do this. Maybe this could be a possibility for me. So I think from there, I kind of took it more seriously. I was, sketching. I was trying to, do as much as I can. And then I broke it down to my parents, because my mom and dad were like,
how did that go? How was that coming out of the closet for you? Like, mom and dad?
Let's just say it wasn't the best of times. I think, because even in college, I was a gold medalist in college and things like that. So I think that came with a lot of weight as well. So when I broke it down to my mom and dad, my dad was still, more understanding, but my mom was not. Yeah, she wasn't very happy with me. But I think that's to be understood, because you think your child is going on one path and then she goes in a completely different direction.
She's throwing her gold medals away.
Technically it was something like that. So then I literally picked up my bags. I was in Darjeeling for probably about 2 to 3 months at that point of time, because I gave up everything in after I'd done my college in Delhi and stuff like that. And I just needed time to figure things out, which was then post that, then I went to Bombay to kind of, pursue this.
Wow, that's like, I wanted to interject before, kudos to this amazing soul you met who gave you like the validation that you needed, to tell you that, you have that is so important. That is so important. Because when you shared it, it really reminded me of a similar instance was, again, like when we were in school, right? Art was never seen as a viable profession. You always had this image of a starving artist and stuff like that. But I used to always draw, and I had this reputation as a guy who draws. Like my Instagram name, Abhishek Draws. They was like, oh yeah, he draws. So interestingly, what was happening was there was a play that we were doing, annual school play or something. And, I used to get so involved in the dialogues and the scripts and everything that I started drawing out the scene from the play, like everyone is there as characters and stuff. And then my teacher, he saw it and he was like, yeah, this is good. Maybe you should like become an illustrator. And I'm like, what? I had not even heard of that word until then. I didn't even know what illustrator was. Cartoonist was familiar, or like, sketch artist was familiar. Illustrator was something, it sounded very complicated. But then I started looking up and I was like, oh, wow, is this what an illustrator is? I love it, because I've grown up looking at illustrator books and I always wanted to make books. And so, yeah, like these little moments, like I'm probably that person doesn't even remember, but he said these things to me.
Exactly.
But yeah, these little things really change our lives. And so tell us, Nori, so from there you went to Bombay and you went to join, I think, was it your first job at Glitch, or did you have to
No,
like,
so I had, so when I was in Bombay as well, since I decided, okay, this is going to be a thing, I have to make it happen. So I was
right,
more like in a learning phase for probably a few months. I was learning
okay,
as much as of like Photoshop, Illustrator, Procreate as I could at that point of time, because
right,
I felt, in all honesty, I felt like I was behind in so many things because I was already, I think at that point of time, 20, I don't know, 24, 23, 24.
right,
And I already felt I was so behind. So I was trying to hustle, trying to learn as much as I could. So after
right,
a few months, I kind of felt okay to um, maybe start looking for a job as well. So at that point of
mhm,
time, I was a part-time illustrator with one of my, one of my friends, Avanti. She had like an event company. So I
mhm,
worked there for a bit, and after that was my first official like job with the Glitch, which is like a digital advertising
yeah,
agency. And I'll tell you
yeah,
the funniest way I got into the Glitch, okay? Because this is also a story. So my friend and me were just on the couch, and I think we had both had like we had our LinkedIn like profiles with each other. And I don't know what I think she was like joking, so she was just like apply here, and she was I don't know doing this funny thing. Okay, so I was like okay cool, and we were both doing that. I get a call like 4 or 5 days later, and they were like, "Oh, is this Mari?" And I was like, "Yes." So they're like, "Oh, you've applied for a brand manager job, at the Glitch, but your profile says like something else completely." So I was like, "No, no, no, sorry, like I think my friend was joking around." And they were like, "Oh, but we do have a position open as a graphic designer." And I was like, "Okay." So they're like, why don't you come tomorrow, see, like give a test, see if things work out and all. I was like, cool, all right. So I went with absolutely no expectations, because at that I like, which is a very like it's a well-known company in that sense. They've been doing a lot of great work. So I honestly expected nothing out of going there, but I thought, hey, it's a good time to learn, even from like an interview, you learn something, right? So I was like, why not learn something? So I went for the interview. I kind of did my thing for like 2, 3 hours. And literally, as it was over, I gave it up to them and I walked off because I was like, okay, it's done. I'm going. So I went off. And they're like, hey, like, don't you want to know what happened? Like, they had to call me back. So I was like, I mean, what in my head, I'm like, what's the most that's going to come out of this, right? So I was like, okay, cool. So I went back in and they were like, hey, we really like your work. Like, why don't you, come and join us? I was like, great, I needed a job also.
wow.
That was how I ended up working at the Glitch.
That's an amazing story. Oh my god.
Yeah.
And like you just applied as a joke and like,
Yeah, and it
hey.
was my friend. Like my friend had like the profiles, and she was sending it to random. Like it wasn't even for a graphic designer or an illustrator thing like that. I think she was just sending it to random people. We were just joking around with each other, and I mean that's how I ended up.
That's incredible. Oh my god. So, okay,
Yeah.
Nori, this is a question that we get a lot, okay? We have a lot of these sessions and we get a lot of this question where people ask, hey, I am sort of like, I did something before which is not into art, but I'm really interested in art. So is it necessary for us to go to art school, become a designer? Or can we just become a designer on our own? And of course, like, we tell them in our own ways, like, our opinions and everything. But I think it's really something when it comes to someone like you who is actually charted the whole path on your own. And like you said, you have that anxiety as well. Like you felt like, I am 25 now, like, time is running out. There are 15-year-olds and 18-year-olds who are making amazing work. Like, what am I doing with my life? So I think it's a lot about like the way you perceive and think about the scenario. So like how you took just going for the job interview. It's like, even if I get rejected, it's a lesson and I am all for learning right now. So why don't you shed some light on that? Like, what do you think about as a self-made, self-taught illustrator about like, your, what would you tell aspiring self-taught artists and digital artists? Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I think this is completely from a personal point of view. It's just, what I think. But I think where we are right now with so many, online classes available, information, knowledge available, right? I mean, at your screen, wherever you are. So I don't think it's necessary to definitely have a design background or, in that sense. There's nothing wrong with going to obviously design school because,
Of course.
I mean,
Right.
your foundation's great in that way. But I would say that I think times have changed compared to maybe where it was 10 years ago, where it was 15 years ago, where knowledge was very limited. I mean, the access to knowledge was very limited. But I think now, since we have access to so many things, it I feel solely depends upon the individual. If
Right.
you feel like you need a complete structure to kind of sit and, get through like the course or the process, then yes, I would suggest maybe you go to a traditional like
Right.
design school in that sense. But otherwise,
Yeah.
if you're passionate enough, if you feel like you can put your 100% into it, I don't think it's completely necessary at this point in time.
Right. And Nori, like when I look at your work, right, I went to your Instagram, and like I said, it gives you a very good perspective into the person that you are. At least from the style that you have, from the color palettes that you have, it it gives me a feeling of like nature, the hills, the mountains, and everything. And I don't know, when I found out that you're from Darjeeling, I could see very strongly that your identity and where you come from plays a strong, I don't know if it's conscious or unconscious, it reflects in your artwork. Um, but what is your opinion on that? Like, is this, how did you arrive at your style and the color palette? Like, was it a journey, and how does your identity and where you come from play a role in your work?
Yeah, Darjeeling plays, I think, a huge role in my artwork. I've grown up with the mountains and the hills around me. I've been constantly surrounded by greenery. So I think because I've been out of Darjeeling now for so many years, that I crave seeing that around me. I think it's
Right.
also at a subconscious level, but it's also very, very evident, when I think even when you talk to me. So that yeah, Darjeeling in general has been a huge influence for me, which is why I think I include so many like plants and foliage and whatever I can include in an illustration, I would definitely do it because I think it's where my core being is also. But in terms of like my style and my color palette, I would say it's been, I think if you look at my Instagram itself, you can make out it's definitely been a process. It's not something that's come within a day or
Right.
two, and it's constantly evolving as well.
Yeah.
But I'd want people to gain a sense of like serenity, like something very calming about like artwork, which I also personally get attracted towards. So it's something that's evolved over the years. Like blues and greens have been now, I think in the past probably like a year or almost 2 years, have been a majority of where my artwork is involved because
Right.
I think it's also it. I feel like those colors also bring out a certain like sense of me in the artwork itself. So that's been a constant evolution. Color palettes and as well as my style of working. That because I mean, I think that's with any artist. I think that's with you too, Abhishek. Like it's always an evolving process.
Absolutely.
So there's nothing that stops that. But yeah, I mean, Darjeeling obviously in my artwork has a huge influence on it.
Huge shout out to Darjeeling, and yeah, I hope people
Yeah.
from Darjeeling are joining us right now. So
I mean, just hoping.
Well, I
Dapol is
am
from.
partly from I'm partly from
I
there.
knew the phone would come in.
Yes, there he is.
Let's just
Yes.
start talking in Nepali now. Like Kasta cha.
Yeah. ठीक है, तुम वहाँ पापाई.
ठीक है, बस. Thank you. Guys,
Subtitles, please.
yeah.
Right. Do we have any
But
questions?
Abhi, yes, we do have. We
yeah.
have a few questions. So
Okay.
one is I'll just read out the question as it is. This is a very basic
Sure.
question, but how is
Yeah.
graphic designing different than illustrations and cartooning? This is from
Oh.
Ritu Parnade, and she says that Nori is so pretty and humble. Yeah.
Oh no.
Okay, Nori, would you like to take that? Because
Yeah, sure.
it's interesting because you've gone through both the fields. You know, you've done illustration as well. Now you're graphic designer at Flipkart. So why don't you use that? Yeah.
So okay, I personally feel that see, even where I'm at right now, even though my day job is kind of doing more visual designing and graphic designing, while when I come home, I kind of do illustrations. So for graphic design, I feel it's a mixture of typography, layout, text, spacing, things like that that are more structured, and you are appealing to the user experience rather than, I think, putting a bit of you into the artwork. Even if it has illustrations involved, you still, I think, the bigger picture that you have to look at is that the user is at the core, of graphic design, and it is also much more structured. It's much more, I think, led by, in the sense of more led by your brain, while I feel like illustrations more led by your heart in that sense. And I think Abhishek will agree with me that illustrations are, I don't know, for me personally, is more of an expression of who I am. I don't put maybe the end user at experience at all. That's not where I go with my illustrations. It's something that's very yeah, it comes from the core of who you are. So, I mean, for me, yeah, that's how I see it, as completely different aspects. But Abhishek, yeah, please add to this. I mean, you've been doing both as well.
No, absolutely. I think Nori, you summarized it pretty well. I think if we look at like the contemporary definitions of both these terms, I would say graphic design is more design-led. It has a certain set of rules and a structure to it, and it has to do working with typography, layout, forms, and shapes. And illustration is basically, if you just, it's basically giving a visual form to an abstract concept. Now, it's very easy to mix these both terms up because, and they are very interrelated also, because in graphic design projects also there are illustrations involved, and illustration can very easily become part of the larger gamut of visual communication that we have, like, which is communicating with the help of visuals. Graphic design is communicating with the help of graphics, and graphic design also uses illustrations. And like, another addition to what Nori said is, like, illustration also has two different sides to it. Like, one illustration is, which is very personal, and it's got a lot of heart to it. I think all illustration has a lot of heart to it, but sometimes you can afford to make illustrations without thinking about the end user. But sometimes as a designer, when you're making illustrations, then the end user is sometimes very important. Like, for example, if I'm making an illustrated poster for a heavy metal concert, the aesthetic that I would use, the kind of fonts that I would use, the kind of illustration that I would use would have a very different style to it versus if I'm making a children's book illustration, right? Children's book illustration has a whole another avenue to it, where you have to use certain colors, certain forms. There's a lot of round forms, and there's a lot of explorative things that you can do, and you can play around a lot with children book illustrations. So similarly, your target audience is very, very important. Like, if I'm working in, say, a manual, which is going to be read by, it is, say, a government pamphlet of sorts. Okay, it's a pamphlet or manual which is meant for village hospitals to communicate a certain idea that, these are the diseases that are a coronavirus, like wear your mask and everything like that, right? So how to communicate that also has a certain style to it. Like, you need to so in these cases, the illustration becomes part of the larger umbrella of graphic design, because your end user is very important now. And designing the poster obviously is graphic design. So I hope we kind of answered your question. Like, they're very interrelated, but graphic design has you need to work with a lot of other aspects, like, you know, the technical aspects of design, and obviously, like, there are certain specific jobs that require you as a graphic designer. And nowadays, there's the other angle, which is their UI UX design, which is again how your phone applications and websites and all get designed, which is user interface and user experience. So like how the Zoom interface is designed, that is the job of a UI UX designer. So yeah, all right. So I think I hope you got your answer.
Great points, Abhishek.
Oh yeah, we have more questions coming up. So do you want me to take them up one by one, or? Okay. So I'll just start from the top. This is from Raul. He says, "Hello, I work in a company where I have to follow a particular design style. I can't explore my design style fully. Do you face these types of problems in this? And if yes, how do you manage to tackle this problem?"
Yeah, I face it all the time, because I think our styles have developed will not always work with a brand or with a company. So for me, when I usually work with a brand or a company, I normally I don't personalize the work in that sense. You know, I keep a sort of distance, because at the end of the day, you're working for them. Your interpretation of the art is important, but your style might have to kind of maneuver around, you know, what they have to say. So I definitely face that problem, but I also like to kind of keep a distance in terms of if it's something that I haven't organically started and worked on, and if it's coming from, you know, another brand or an agency, I usually do it the way maybe they would, you know, want it. But I would say, if you feel like something really works for the brand or for the company, then I feel like you should stand and kind of push for it. Maybe, you know, talk them into seeing that this style or this illustration would go with that brand. That's how I usually tackle it.
Right. And I think it's also a good opportunity where you get to, you know, say, learn new styles, right? Expand new style. Yeah. So yeah.
I was
I think
just coming to that. Thank you, Dabun, for bringing that up. I also believe like it always helps as like what I've experienced. It always helps to be able to adapt to different styles. Of course, like the common idea that everyone is like, you know, you need to have one style for a person, and Instagram rewards that, right? Like Instagram, if it sees like a common looking trait, like, you know, you see get more followers, and you think like having a common style is probably the way to go. And yes, in some cases it works. Like, you know, you can carve a niche for yourself, and then people come to you for that particular style. But if you're in the growing phase, if you're like, you know, planning to get as much experience as you can, if you're planning to evolve into a style, I would suggest like keep yourself open. You know, don't be in the rush to adopt a style. Like, you know, keep yourself open, try out different styles. You never know, because you know where you might find a style that is like something which is most suited for the story that you want to say. So keep yourselves open. And yeah, it's a very common problem that often your style when you're working for a company does not match the company's requirements. But like Nori said, you know, sometimes you can find a way to like convince the boss that, hey boss, this style will work great with this campaign, and give him the proper reasoning, sell your idea well. Then maybe, yeah, you will have fun while you're doing your company work as well. All right.
Yeah.
Tapan, do we have
somebody? Yes, somebody wants her to show some references. Can you please tell us how you start from scratch, your designing process? So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tapan, for bringing that up. Let's yeah, this is the segment that we were planning to move into. Nori, it would be amazing if you could share some of your work and maybe your process as well. So
okay, process.
Please let
I
me
might
know
have
if you're
to
able to screen.
Yeah. I'll try and share my screen. But I'm saying in terms of a process, I don't really have it here right now, but I'll share what I can and I'll explain my
No,
process.
we want to see your secrets. Secrets.
I would have. I mean, I would have, but I don't have it ready with me. But I thought it would be the best. Oh, I don't think I can share my screen. I thought
You're
it would
not
be.
able to share your screen?
Yeah.
Just a second. All right. Yeah, you should be able to now.
So I think the best way to kind of see how like my styles also evolved over time is you literally have to look through like my Instagram, because this is Abhishek. I don't know if you've gone through, like I'm sure you haven't gone right to the end, but this is what it was. I mean, a little cringe, but I mean, this is how it started off as well. But maybe I can find something that I'll show how I started from the beginning. Yeah, give me a second. So usually when I start something, I start with a very basic sketch like this. If it's, for example, this one was a logo that I had done for a company. But what I start out is with maybe two options of the sketch. In this case, the logo was Lungta. So Lungta is the translation in Tibetan is a wind horse. So I knew I obviously had to put horse into the illustration, which is how I started off with kind of a basic sketch of a horse, and I kind of go into two different directions to see, what would work out for the client as well. So this is how I start out with an illustration, a very, very basic sketch into what it could be. And post that is when I try to see, this is like a really old artwork, but I'll explain it to you. So after that is when maybe I send it off to like a client to kind of get feedback, and then I sit and vectorize the rest. If it's not a vector, then if it's an illustration, I kind of put colors into it, think of color combinations, color palettes, and then move into finalizing, the final illustration. Otherwise, I can show you something else as well. I have a basic sketch of so this is also like how I start my sketches. I usually take, and references, I look at more, like everybody, I also have a Pinterest board, but those I use for references in terms of like maybe, the type of flowers I want to use, the leaves I want to use. So for this particular illustration, I had slight references of maybe I wanted to bring a Frida Kahlo-esque, style into it, which was how I got into illustrating, the botanicals on top and the two women. And I took a separate reference of like, you can see the wicker chair at the back is, then I added, into that. So then the final product looked something like this, where after that I've chosen, specific color palettes. And that also is like an evolving process. Like if you see the background at the back right now, it's blue. But I think initially when I started out, it was yellow, like the yellow you see the woman wearing. It was a muted yellow color at the back. But again, I think it's a process to kind of see where your artwork also takes you.
Is this how it evolves? Does it evolve as you go along, or is this how you saw it?
100%. For me, it always evolves. There are some projects where I have an immediate, vision of it, but the vision is also it's not completely defined. I think in terms of like maybe the sketch and like the colors, I kind of can think of. But if I'm thinking of like this artwork at the end, it's a constant state of like evolution. I'll change, like I keep changing the hue saturation on colors, on like in the entire artwork, to be honest. But yeah, that's how I begin. And otherwise, I'll show you like some projects that I worked on, which could be interesting. So you can see earlier, my color palette was very, very bright. It was lots of like greens, yellows, but in a much like a brighter tone. And I think as I've started, sketching and things like that is when I my process also has evolved as well as my color palette. So this was one of my favorite projects that I did with Riddhi Parekh, who is like a photographer. And we had gone to Orissa on a road trip project. And this was what came out of it. She had taken pictures of the students at the Konark Dance School. And so I've done like, this was like a process video that you can have a look at, which was kind of how we started to do it. So as soon as I saw it, I kind of knew I wanted the flute. I wanted, you know, the lotus to kind of go around it as well. Yeah, this is actually a good sketch to kind of see my process and how things go. So I took a reference of maybe like what I wanted the lotus to look like, and
So
I probably
good.
like added things around it and kind of, you know, changed it around. But this was one part that I had done with her. This was another also, this was the second part of the series that I had done with Riddhi. And this was the last one, which also is one of my
Oh
favorites.
boy, I love that. I love this one.
I mean, her photography is amazing. So I didn't even have to kind of take a lot to, you know, think of like how the illustration should be.
Right.
It was the perfect kind of
Did-
canvas, you know.
But it's amazing how you've adapted your style to the
Correct.
regional
That
style
is exactly
of the
what I wanted to say.
yeah, like the Patachitra style is so evident in the way you have incorporated and married that style into the visual. It is incredible. It is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think I was very, very inspired by art, like the artists that I met there. So it was kind of easy for me to sit and, you know, do something. This was my.
Do you want to share a little bit about that project with us? Because I think that was, you shared that that project was something which was very, like, you know, what do you say, influential in connecting you to the design world and really, like, you know, helping you find your tribe. So yeah, why don't you tell us about, because we have the common connection as well, like, you know.
Yeah, we do. So I think for people who don't know, like even Abhishek's gone for this road trip project. I went also, I think, but I didn't obviously meet Abhishek there, but we have a lot of friends in common. But I think the project was a great way for me because I haven't been surrounded by that kind of creative energy all the time. And I think on that project is when I was surrounded by photographers and artists, writers. So that kind of gave me a boost to think in very like different ways, creative ways. And also we went, I mean, to these core villages in Orissa, and we learned art forms there. We were observing them. So I think that also sparked a lot out of me, where I was learning so much from the other person. So and also in that sense that I met so many people who were doing amazing things, you know, I like with their jobs, with their creative professionals. These were not like people who had like traditional sort of you know, background, but to see them do so well in what they were doing, I think that inspired me to kind of also be okay with, you know, where I am. And I got in touch with a lot of artists, a lot of illustrators, a lot of photographers. So it was, yeah, it was a great, great experience. So this was the project that came out of that road trip. Yeah, and this was my 36 days of type that I worked on. I love vintage stamps. So I kind of wanted to take that vintage stamp, but put my own spin on it, which was why I used phobias. So they are all
These are
different
gorgeous.
phobias. So
Can you, yeah, show us some of your favorite phobias out of this list?
Yes, yes.
You know, because you have done quite a lot of research, like 36 phobias, or 26 phobias, it would be, right? 24 phobias, it would be. So yeah, like, tell us about your experience.
I think researching for this project was fun because phobia, I mean, I think every person in the world has something that they're scared of. So I thought, why not try and illustrate that, bring that out into, an illustration, which was how I came down to kind of putting it into vintage stamps and, you know, showing the different phobias through that. So I think one of my favorites is entomophobia because I I love like animals, plants, insects, but I know a lot of people who don't. So I think they were creeped out. Like my friends were creeped out by all these bugs and all that are on with me. So that was a.
So I think the project worked.
Okay, what is
That-
your personal phobia, if you would
Yeah.
like to share with us? Is it amongst the list?
I don't think it's among the list because these are very object specific because I needed to, get objects in the background. But for the longest time, because of I think how I am or where I was so afraid of failure in every sense of the word. I was so
Afraid of, I'm sorry?
I was so afraid of failure, like, failing to
Failure.
do, failing
Yeah.
to meet my parents' expectations, failing to, like, get into the arts, things like that. So I was very, very afraid of failure.
Yeah.
But I think that's more or less, that's gone in the last, like, 2 years. Like, yeah, but that was
Absolutely.
a
I think
huge fear of mine.
like fear of failure is like you said, like that invisible roommate that you have with you at all times.
100%.
Always the elephant, the biggest elephant in the room.
It's a
Always.
dinosaur.
Yeah, in the room. Yeah.
That's so true.
But I really
Alright,
like how you like used phobia as 36 days of time, because I've never seen something like this. So amazing work, Nori.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun to work on, to be honest. I really liked it. This was
Yeah,
another project
amazing.
that I'd done at the glitch. So that
Oh,
was
wow.
fun. For little things.
Hey, this little things. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I worked on it while I was at the glitch, but this was something they were like, oh, you can do whatever you want with it, like bring in your own style.
This
and
must have
stuff
been
like that.
fun.
This was a really fun project. I really had fun.
Love this.
And the funny thing is,
Wow.
I had to binge watch the entire season in like one day because it was releasing like soon. Imagine I was sitting in the office and I'm like watching, trying to like take notes. I was like, okay, I can put these objects in the illustration.
Perks of the job, huh?
Yeah, so this was really fun to work on with.
Or you could just like, Alexa, tell me the plot of Little Things.
I needed it.
Awesome.
Yeah, can you please tell us
I
about
love
that, The Many That I Am? Because that is a project which is very...
Yeah, this is a project that's very close to my heart because I feel like post this I kind of found what illustrations I loved doing, the color palettes I liked working with. And this honestly took me, I think, because there was a lot of back and forth, with the publishers and things like that. This took me probably 2.5 months to finish. With the editor, I was in touch with on and off because she was sending me, pictures of Nagaland and how like the chili farms are. So when I started out with a rough sketch with Sukriti, who works at Zuban Books, which is the publisher, which is the publishing house for this book. So she told me she wanted to start out with a series where maybe it would be like a shop front, of the different like stalls that are in the Northeast. And it was a really nice idea, but I think once we came down to like sketching it and kind of showing it, it didn't really show that essence of Nagaland as well. So we wanted to change it up, and which was how we came down to maybe illustrating chili farms. And everything I think in this illustration is inspired by. So you see these leaves, even the pattern that's on like the clothing. Everything was worked on from scratch. But this was something that I was really proud of. Also, one of my first books, like the complete book cover. But it was such an interesting project because I did so much of research into, I think, coming down to this book cover. And I like things like that where I can get into the history, of the place, history of the people, and then kind of get the essence of what they need. So this was a really fun project to work on.
This is also one of my favorite projects by you. But I'm really curious, like, what's the story behind the chili farms?
So the chili farms, I believe this was when the editor Nungla and I had a conversation. But I believe even decades ago, maybe like 20, 30 years ago, like chilies were the basic part of Nagaland, where a lot of the economy, to be honest, depended upon it, because it used to go for a lot of export, even import, things like that. But in the chili farms, you would see only women, like you wouldn't see any men. So they'd be the ones toiling, picking up the chilies, drying it, taking it back. So I think Anungla was saying like it would be probably the essence of the book, because a lot of, I believe a lot of, even in Nagaland currently, obviously, like the female representation is not as much. So she wanted to kind of bring that angle into it as well. So, which was how I think this cover story also came out. But it was
amazing.
Yeah, I think till now also one of my favorite projects to work on.
You also
and
did
then-
another project with Zuban, right? With it was kind of like a crafting
Yes.
the word.
Oh,
Is that
yes,
with
yes, yes.
Zuban?
Yeah, I did the second book of Manipur, and then I also
And the A for Afspa, the thing which I
yes,
done.
yes.
Can you show us that?
This also I collaborated with Zuban on. So they were doing, this was, I think, a little after the 36 days of life. And
Yeah.
they wanted to,
I love this
I
one.
think, take each letter, represent it in your illustration, and to kind of explain, the alphabets of, I think it was violence and resistance. So yeah, A was for AFSPA, and for anything that has a message behind it, has something that I can maybe bring someone's attention to, maybe who didn't have that, like, knowledge about that, is, yeah. So this was an amazing also project to get into, but this was also with Zuban. So it was.
You know what I really love about this particular illustration is like it uses the same color palette that you use otherwise, but your other illustrations give this feeling of calmness and feeling very wholesome. But this is very eerie. Like the green over here is very,
Right.
I don't know, it's very
Right.
toxic and venomous, and it gives you a very dangerous feeling about it. And there's, and you've done that in a very beautiful way without showing bloodshed, which is, I think, is
Yeah, that's
wonderful
something I
because
didn't want to bring into the artwork, even though obviously there's a history of violence and things like that.
right.
Something that I wouldn't want to incorporate.
That is something amazing. Like to be able to show violence without showing violence. I mean, like,
Yeah. I
I
love
think
the
Ram
way
Gopal Verma should
Nori.
take some lessons.
I mean, that's what I was getting into. I love the way Nori uses your color. You use your colors to evoke a feeling of intense or or warmth. So that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, and the
There's a
same
question.
color to evoke the different moods, which is kind of amazing.
Correct.
Which is, I think,
That's what I
masterful
mean.
use
Yeah.
of color.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
would
what's the
say
next question?
Yeah, I was just a comment. Like I always personally like to see their first work ever, like by the artist, to see how they evolved. So thank you, Nori, for going all the way back and showing us
Not
how
at
it's very
all.
inspirational. Yeah.
Not at
So
all.
we have a few questions on the devices that you use. The people are asking, is it necessary for us to buy an iPad to get, or does it feel easier? Wait, I'll just read the question. Is iPad required, or like does it feel easier than graphics tab? I do use graphics tab, and it feels sometimes quite troublesome. Zoom in, zoom out, and stuff like that. Do you think you should use iPad? So basically, if people are for using the iPad or any other device.
Okay, so for me also, I started out on a graphics tab. I started out on like a small, the Wacom tablet that you kind of connect to your laptop. And that, for me also as an illustrator, for a graphic designer, I think it works perfectly for you to kind of, put in elements and take out elements and things like that. But to get into more detail, it was a little difficult for me on the graphics tab. Which was why I think also I got into maybe the iPad and things like that. But again, saying that, I mean, I know an iPad is a huge investment. It's not something that could be taken lightly, because
Right.
you know how Apple products are. My God, they're always so expensive. But what I would
Absolutely.
what I would say is, because I like the feeling of like sketching, on a paper, and I get that most when I'm on an iPad with my Apple Pencil. That's a very
Awesome.
a very weird thing to say, but I like that
Yeah.
feeling. So which is why I think I gravitated towards that more.
Right.
Okay. I think a lot of people think that it's the device that turns you into a good artist. But like, do you agree with that, or do you think that it's actually, it does help you, I believe, but obviously you also should have it within you.
Oh, for sure. I completely agree with you. I think there's nothing wrong with having maybe like an iPad and things like that. But I mean, I was illustrating with my finger for 1 year. So, I mean, I think you have to make do with what you have.
Like, you can't go
Yeah.
more basic than that.
Yeah,
Right.
literally, I've illustrated things with a finger. So all I'm saying
Yeah.
is, I think when you're starting out, use whatever you have. You don't have to invest in like these big things. And probably later, when you're more sure, when maybe your skill set has also grown at that point of time, is when maybe you can think of investing in, something.
Yeah. That's a
Yes,
beautiful
yes.
answer. Like,
Do
I
you also
100% agree to
absolutely?
that. And I think
Hmm.
even when I was starting out,
Mhm.
right, like I didn't have a graphics tablet. I didn't have, obviously, iPad at that time was like, and this is, I'm talking about 2008, 2009. So, but again, that Kira was there, like you could see your batchmates are making amazing illustrations and everything. So initially, I just started out like drawing on paper. I would scan it, I would take the Photoshop, and I should draw on the touchpad with my finger. Like
Wow.
one finger is pressing the button, one finger. I have no idea how I did that. I can't do it anymore. It was just that at that point I had that
That hunger.
that drive, that hunger to do it, and I did it. And at that point, it didn't feel strange. It just, I felt like, oh, I found a way. It works. It's not weird.
Exactly.
And then after that, I bought my first tablet. I think around 2010 or 11, and it was a Wacom Intuos 4. And to be honest, like I have been using that for the past 8 or 9 years now, and I got the iPad only much later in my life. I got it only 2 years back, and I would completely agree with Nori that iPad is an investment. Okay, I would say, of course, the drawing experience is very different. It takes a little of getting used to, but it feels great. But yes, maybe before investing 80,000 rupees or something like that on a iPad, like start with one of the basic tablets, because I started like that, and my entire digital art journey has been on a graphics drawing tablet. And yeah, because it works as a mouse also, so it does the job. It does a lot of things at the same time. So until you reach a certain level of expertise and comfort zone, then probably like gravitate and migrate to another device. But I think I would always advise beginners to start with a beginner's Wacom tablet, like a Bamboo or One.
Definitely.
Very true, very true. And like you said, the hunger, it always will get the job done. You will find a way around it. Like you said,
Yeah.
like using that finger. Nori started with the finger and all that, so it's very inspiring. Nori, how do you deal with mental blocks? In the sense, like, do you face creative blocks sometimes? That's also a question by
All the time.
this.
All the
Yeah,
time.
it's a question by an anonymous attendee.
So yeah, I mean, like creative blocks I face almost, I think, every fortnightly. Sometimes depending upon the project, I just can't seem to do anything about it. But what I do when I usually have a creative block is leave illustration like aside completely. I think that's when I know that I've burnt myself out for that period of time, and I need to refresh myself to kind of get back into it. So what I do is normally, if I can, I mean, right now, obviously, it's not the right time to say it, but I love like going on a drive or going somewhere, like even traveling in that sense, even if it's for a day or two, really refreshes my mind. And I think
Absolutely.
meeting people on that, journey kind of also, I don't know, it sparks something in you. I can't really say what it is. Even if it's um, I don't know, even if it's a person on the road, if it's a leaf that you see, if it's, it could be anything very random, but that kind of, again, brings me back to, thinking of new ideas and things like that. But I mean, right now, since we can't do that, I leave everything completely off. I sit maybe like watch a good movie, just I shut off completely for like a day or two, and then only I get back into it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's my process.
I think it's important to
Obviously.
take those breaks.
Oh,
To
definitely.
take those breaks in between, you know.
Most
Yeah,
definitely.
so that you can actually get back to it with more energy. Yeah.
What do you do,
Uh,
Dapo? What about you? How do you get
me?
over mental blocks?
Well, I do a lot of things. Like I sing, I animate, I draw comics, I cycle. I love cycling. So again, like Nori said, like whenever I reach a mental block, there's always something else I do. I just leave this for a bit because I have reached a point where it's fatigue now. I can't think of it anymore.
Yeah.
Think of anything anymore. So I just go out, and it's a way because I get refreshed and I get ideas for the next, you know, drawing or whatever, or comic or whatever I do. So it, I think it works both ways. So I think it's important to take those breaks. Like, yeah, but of course there's a catch here, because when you are working on a deadline, you cannot do that. In office, you cannot just suddenly just take off and go say, "Ki, main ja raha hu." So, you know, so I think by that time, what I usually do is I just take a little bit of a break. It is important to take a break, you know, to take a break for 5 minutes and just do something else which is not your job, which is not what you're doing. Just anything else. Talk to a friend, you know, just watch a little bit of a YouTube clip or something. You know, it really refreshes, and just take a walk maybe around the office building. It refreshes you. And yeah, what about you, Abhi?
I take a nap.
This I know.
Yes.
This I know.
She knows.
I know it.
I'm gonna try that next time. Nori, I'm sorry, going back to the device question again. I have another very interesting question. Says ki Rituparna De, she says she is very comfortable with drawing the traditional way on paper with paintbrushes, and she is very uncomfortable making the transition to a device, to a Wacom and stuff like that. So how do you push yourself? How does she push herself to upgrade to the current scenario? Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting question. I could take this both ways in the sense that I feel like you should do also what you're comfortable with. What your art, I think, comes out best in. I know a lot of artists who only use watercolor, who use, you know, like oil paintings, things like that. So I think whatever you're comfortable with, you should do. I don't think you should push yourself just because maybe the scenario is changing, or maybe, I don't know. I don't think that should be the motive behind it. Like, my motive behind it was because I was completely inspired by what I saw, and that's why I got into it. That's why I wanted to do it. But if it's not something you want to do, I don't think you should push yourself. That's one aspect of it. Second, if you do want to get into it, I would suggest, you know, like, I'm not sure what the device is. Even I think Wacom has one where even if you draw on paper, it kind of transfers on your
Yeah.
Right.
something like that.
Yeah.
I think it's Wacom. There are also other companies, but once you know, sketch out your thing on paper, it kind of transfers like the, I think, basic lines and sketches and things like that. So it transfers onto that. So that could be a possibility of you know, getting into it. But if it's something like you're getting into just because it's a trend, then I don't think you should.
That's a great answer.
I think it's also about adaptability. Also, sometimes I feel like I
True.
used to be very scared of making the transition myself, and especially being a 2D animator and then getting into 3D. When I saw the 3D space, I was like shit scared. I was like, what is this gray screen and everything? But I think it again, this just comes down to art all over again. So, you know, even in 3D there's art. So it's just a way of, I guess, finding like, you know, make a slow start. Don't just get right into it. Like Nori said, that you
Definitely,
can
it's
try
a
that
learning.
on that
It's a
Wacom
learning
tablet.
curve for sure. Yeah, it's
Yeah, you
definitely
try
a
the
learning
Wacom
Yeah.
and
curve.
then go ahead. Yeah, correct.
I would also like to add, like, I agree with Dapun in that sense. I believe, like, as an artist, we should always, like, be open also to newer possibilities, because the time that we find ourselves is very it's very interesting, because technology is changing so fast. It's changing faster for some of us to even grasp it now. Like,
Absolutely.
you right, like, technology is changing so fast, and I don't know, it's like a personal this thing that I have is I want to keep myself updated I want to keep myself updated with what's happening, to be at par with what the industry requirements are, because I feel that's the only way we can grow, right? By staying relevant, because otherwise we might just become relics of the past. And unless we are able to establish ourselves before that as a well-known traditional artist, it might be difficult for us, because ultimately, let's accept it, yeah. Like, we are doing art as a profession, and we have to make something back. We have to make money back. And that is something which is actually the driving force, which is pushing me to sort of go beyond my mental blocks. Like Dapun said, like I have always had this thing that, yeah, I want to do 3D, yeah, I want to learn 3D, but like the moment I go into 3D software, it's so intimidating. It's like a dystopic black surface, a gray surface. It looks very scary, and it's very technical.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very technical. It's not very
not inviting at all.
You know,
it's not inviting at all.
Like in Photoshop, like, you know, how you can just make mistakes and everything and just find your way, you can teach yourself. In 3D software, it's very technical in the sense, like, you know, if you have to rotate something, you have to exact, like, you know, coordinates and everything you have to enter like that. So, but
correct.
But over time, you know, I have sort of prepared myself for this. I told myself that during this lockdown, I'm going to learn something new. And I discovered there's actually a very beautiful community nowadays online, which is very encouraging for newcomers on YouTube and Reddit. And there are lots of forums which are very supportive. So it was very nice for me to like learn. When I see other people struggling with the same thing, it felt like, you know, oh, I'm not an idiot. You know, it'll be slow, but I will learn. And thing is, again, it's also not that I have to master the software. I just want to be able to grasp it, so that tomorrow, say, even if I have to hire someone, tomorrow, if I have to collaborate with someone, I'm not completely clueless. I was like, I have no idea what's going on. Like, please help, like that, you know? So that is the reason I would encourage people that give it a shot. Like, don't say that it's not for you before even you try it.
Don't shut it out completely.
Don't shut it out completely, because digital art has its own advantages, dude. Like, number one being like undo button, dude. Control Z. It's like
it really spoils
amazing.
You know, spoiler alert, it spoils you.
Oh, man.
That's the Dapun pun of the session.
More coming up.
But another thing is, like, when you're doing professional work, like, there should always be open to like hundreds of changes, hundreds of edits, and you have to entertain your client. You have to be like, if they say, I want it in this color, in that color, like changing color in traditional art means making an artwork from scratch all over again. If someone says, I don't like the pink skirt, you'll be like, what? I have to like make it from scratch now. While it's much, much easier when you're doing on Procreate or Illustrator or Photoshop. So, don't stop yourself. Don't, like, you know,
but also, like, don't
give it a shot.
Don't let go of your roots. I mean, if you love doing, if you love painting, keep doing that. And just adapt to the newer styles also, because that's also important. Like Abhi said, you have to be alive. You have to stay alive. You know, so
that's a very important distinction. Actually, that's a very important distinction that I forgot to mention. Is like, again, there's this thing that what your relationship with your art is. Okay. Nowadays, there is this entire push that if you're good at something, you have to make money out of it. If you're doing art as a hobby, then do it as a hobby. Do what makes you happy, like Nori said. If it's giving you anxiety, then don't, like, maybe it's different now. Like, just go back to like doing what makes you happy. But if your relationship to art is a professional one, and you want to make money out of it, and you want to build a profession out of it, then some of these real life factors come in. Then you just start thinking about it in a different way. That's why a lot of people say those are people who turn their hobby into their profession don't have a hobby anymore.
Yeah. But that's a
I agree.
Abhishek, honestly. It summed up what we were saying. Really.
Do we have more questions?
We do have a lot of questions, but do we have time? Are we doing good on time?
We can be let's have, I think the next session starts at, I think, 5. So let's have it for another 5 minutes, maybe.
Cool. So we do have questions like, I use Adobe Illustrator from the beginning, always face difficulty in Photoshop. What are your suggestions for what's your suggestion to use for making
Sorry,
illustration? Which software do you use is the question. So
what software
he has a problem with one software. It's sort of like that. I use Adobe Illustrator from the beginning.
Oh,
like
okay.
he has started using Illustrator from the beginning, but always face difficulty when it comes to Photoshop, when it comes to using Photoshop. So what's your suggestion? Which software should you use to make illustration? I think it depends on the.
Yeah, I mean, it completely depends upon your like illustration. For me, I use now, because I use Procreate on the iPad, which is a pixel-based software like Photoshop. So even if I take it, I usually use more of Photoshop. My skills in Illustrator, I mean, is like lower comparatively to Photoshop. So I mean, completely depends upon your style or what you like, making. I don't think you can. I don't think you can force yourself into one. You see what you're more comfortable with. But if you do want to, learn more about that software, then I think you should take out more time to kind of go through classes. I mean, that's how I learned Illustrator and Photoshop. It was all through YouTube. There were like classes that I could do, and it was all through that. So if you feel like you want to learn more about that software, then go through maybe a course like that. But other than that, find something that you're comfortable with.
It again goes back to that whole thing about expanding your knowledge.
Right.
Yeah.
And another, I think, way to address this issue is, I would like you, the person, the questioner, to introspect as what is the problem that you're facing. Like the ones who understand what is giving you the problem, what is the issue that you're facing, then you'll be able to diagnose that and find, okay, this is the issue. And I need to find a software other than this, which does not have this issue. And for me, like Nori said, I started with Photoshop. For me, going to Illustrator was a little difficult because it's a web-based software. Things happened a little differently there. And for weird reason, Adobe has made some of the basic controls different there. I don't know why they have done that. It's the same company. They could, but that was my irritating pet peeve. And that was, but for me, it was basically just practice. I just kept on doing it. Takes time, but you eventually get to, get better at it. Like same thing happened with me in Procreate. When I started Procreate, I hated it. Like I just not able to use it well because I felt Photoshop had such better controls. I was able to create with so much ease on Photoshop, and Procreate was a problem. But then I just kept on doing it, and it took me about a year or so. Now I am super comfortable on Procreate. It's great to just quickly jot down ideas. So I just would suggest practice. Give it a chance. Practice. I know it's very easy to get irritated. It's like, nahi karna hai. I don't want to do this anymore. But yeah, just give it some time. And if it still doesn't work, there are a lot of free softwares nowadays, like GIMP. There is Manga Studio. There is a lot of good softwares. So find your pick. You might. Yeah, there's a lot of things happening right now. So yeah, you'll find your match.
Nori, I usually make psychedelic illustrations, but sometimes I have to use Photoshop for animation. That's the area where I face the problem. Okay, so that's the answer. That's the problem where he's facing.
Animation is the problem.
Yeah, he uses Photoshop for animation. He or she uses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then
so anyway, again.
Yeah, it's completely all practice. If you
practice,
for I don't know, specifically psychedelic illustrations, I would think even for me, I went into After Effects much later. I think after maybe a year or two that I knew Adobe Illustrator, because Illustrator and Photoshop, because to get your mind around one software itself takes a lot of time. So I would suggest if your output model, I mean, what I can imagine for a psychedelic illustration, if you feel like there's something lagging, then maybe, because I mean, Photoshop is not the best place to kind of animate your stuff unless it's really like a frame by frame animation or things like that. So maybe think of also, maybe you could learn After Effects over time and see how that goes for you. I mean, it's another software obviously, and there's a learning curve for sure, but I think that would be like your outcome, I think, is what your problem is. So I think the outcome would be much better maybe on After Effects.
Yeah.
If you can get into that, I mean, that'd be great.
All right, that was great. That's a great answer. And
That was
I
great.
think we're
That was a great
slowly
answer,
coming
seriously.
to the end of our session.
There's
It's
so many more questions remaining. I can't really.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, guys. We'll probably have to close the session now.
Yeah.
Or Abhi, do you have?
Sorry.
Should we just ask one last question?
Yeah,
Do
of course.
Create
Let's
your
have
own?
one last
Do
question.
you create your own? Yeah. Do you create your own brushes or do you buy your brushes?
Oh, good question actually. I do a mixture of both. I do buy some brushes, but again, this comes back to because like on Procreate, it's kind of quite easy to manipulate, change up, because I love like textures on my illustrations. So to kind of get that effect of like a hand-drawn, kind of effect, I've had to like look for a lot of texture brushes, but I do a mixture of both. I buy some that I like. I've bought some probably like gouache brushes and like I said, texture brushes. But other than that, I kind of like to also create my own, because sometimes I don't find it completely online and some prices are ridiculous and I'm not going to pay that much money for it. So I was like, leave it. I'll try and look for my own. So yeah, then I kind of just do my own thing.
Being an artist is expensive, y'all.
Yes, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
That's so true.
So I guess that's Abhi. I guess that's a wrap on it then.
All right. Thank you so much, Nori, for joining us.
Can I just say, like, no, thank you. I mean, thank you both for, to obviously the Gap Talks for having me over. And guys, like, these guys have been doing such an amazing job. Please, like, take out your phones, take pictures of them, tag them on, like, Instagram, because I know how much work it goes into putting so many people together in such a, like in 3 days. And you guys have been killing it. So, I mean, thank you so much for having me also.
Thank you so much,
And
Nori.
in the end,
I just
want to say, your favorite Nepali expression, Ambo.
Ambo.
Abhi, you say it
too. Ambo.
Ambo, it's so cool.
So,
all right,
then.
Yeah, Abhi, go ahead.
Thank you so much for joining us, Nori. Like, it was a really wonderful, insightful session into your journey. And it's a pleasure to listen to you and see your work.
Thank you for having me over.
And if you have questions, guys, you can definitely ask Nori. You can DM her, right, Nori?
Yeah, you can just ping me. I'll help in whatever way I can.
Yeah.
Right. All right.